Captain Lee Dae-ho stepped off the transport shuttle and immediately wanted to turn around. The thing floating in front of him barely qualified as a spaceship. The Iron Phoenix looked like someone had taken a garbage truck, beaten it with hammers, then welded random metal plates wherever holes appeared. "You've got to be kidding me," whispered Chief Engineer Park Min-soo, his experienced eyes scanning the disaster before them. 20 years fixing ships had taught him to spot problems from a kilometer away. This wasn't a ship. It was a floating death trap. The Galactic Trade Consortium's representatives watched from their pristine observation deck, their blue-scaled faces twisted in what humans had learned to recognize as alien amusement. "Ambassador." Feltharion's translator crackled to life with barely concealed mockery. "As requested, we provide your species with military vessel. Registration codes transmitted. May it serve you well." The other council members made sounds that definitely counted as laughter in any language. To them, this was the perfect joke. Humans asking for protection, humans thinking they deserved real military hardware. Hilarious. Lieutenant Kim So-ra pulled out her tablet, trying to make sense of the ship's technical readout. The numbers made her stomach sink. "Captain, this thing was decommissioned 15 years ago. The mining company called it economically unfeasible to repair back then." She scrolled through more specifications, each one worse than the last. "The main reactor output is 30% below minimum safety standards. Life support systems are patched together from 3 different manufacturers. And, sir," she paused, double-checking the data, "there are literally no weapons, not even emergency defense systems." Park Min-soo kicked a piece of debris floating near the docking port. It bounced off the hull with a hollow clang that made everyone wince. "The armor plating is so thin I could probably punch through it. Look at these welds. They used whatever scrap metal they could find. I can see at least 12 different alloy types just from here." Captain Dae-ho's hands tightened into fists as he stared at their gift. 3 weeks ago, pirates had hit the IE cargo convoy returning to New Busan. His younger brother, Jin-woo, had been aboard the lead freighter when the raiders struck. They'd found the wreckage 2 days later. Empty cargo holds and no survivors. The Galactic Trade Consortium's response? A form letter expressing minimal concern and a reminder that human settlements existed at their own risk in unpatrolled space. When the human colonies formally requested military protection, the Council had deliberated for exactly 4 minutes before offering this insult. "Captain," So-ra said quietly, noticing the tension in his shoulders. "The consortium fleet has over 300 active warships. Their smallest escort vessel has more firepower than some planetary defense systems. They could end the pirate problem in a week if they wanted to. But they don't want to," Dae-ho replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're useful for mining asteroids and hauling cargo. We work the dangerous jobs their species won't touch. But protect us. Why waste resources on expendable labor?" The alien observers were already leaving, their entertainment over. In their minds, they'd fulfilled their legal obligation. The humans had requested a warship, and technically they'd received one. If the stupid mammals got themselves killed trying to use it, that was natural selection at work. Park Min-soo walked around the docking collar, examining every visible system. "The good news is it's spaceworthy. Barely. The bad news is everything. Helse?" He pointed to a section where 3 different hull patches overlapped. This section was hit by something big. Asteroid maybe, or weapons fire. They just welded plates over the damage without fixing the underlying structure. Electronics specialist Seo Ji-hoon emerged from the airlock, his face pale. "I've seen the inside, Captain. It's worse than it looks from out here. Half the control systems are manually operated because the computers can't interface with the jury-rigged components. The navigation array is held together with wire ties and prayer." Technician Cho Woo-jin joined them, wiping grease from his hands. "The mining equipment is still functional, though. Those plasma cutters could slice through anything, and the industrial tractor beams are actually overpowered for a ship this size. The ore processing system could handle pretty much any raw material you fed into it." So-ra looked up from her tablet with surprise. "Wait, they left all the mining equipment active. Why would they do that?" "Because they still expect us to mine asteroids while we're getting shot at," Dae-ho said grimly. In their minds, we're getting a mining ship that can maybe run away from pirates. The idea that we might actually fight back never occurred to them. The small human crew stood in silence, studying their impossible mission. 43 people, one dying ship, and an entire sector full of raiders who knew exactly how helpless human colonies were. Park Min-soo straightened up, a familiar glint in his eyes that Dae-ho recognized from their academy days. You know what, Captain? Maybe that's exactly the advantage we need. They're expecting us to fail. The pirates are expecting easy targets. The consortium is expecting us to quietly disappear. What are you thinking? Dae-ho asked. I'm thinking we stop trying to make this thing into what they want it to be and start making it into what we need it to be. Min-soo gestured toward the mining equipment. We've got industrial-grade tools, oversized power systems, and a hull that's already been blown apart and put back together. Maybe it's time to think like humans instead of trying to copy alien military doctrine. Sora was already pulling up. New displays on her tablet, her mind racing. The mining laser array, if we could reconfigure the power distribution, and those tractor beams, added Wu Jin, they're designed to move asteroids. Imagine what they could do to a pirate ship. For the first time since seeing their warship, Captain Lee Dae-ho smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Gentlemen, ladies, let's show the galaxy what happens when you give humans junk and expect us to be grateful. The sound of plasma torches filled the Iron Phoenix as sparks showered down from the ceiling. Captain Lee Dae-ho ducked under a hanging cable and made his way through what used to be the ship's main cargo bay. Now it looked like a mad scientist's laboratory crossed with a weapons factory. Captain, you need to see this. Chief Engineer Park Min-soo called out, his face blackened with soot but grinning like a kid with a new toy. He stood next to what had once been a simple asteroid mining laser. Now it bristled with additional power conduits, cooling systems, and focusing arrays that definitely weren't in the original design. Min-soo activated the targeting system, and the laser pivoted with a mechanical whir. Watch this. He fired a quick burst at a chunk of scrap metal floating outside the ship. The beam sliced through it like a hot knife through butter, leaving perfectly cauterized edges. That's nice, but we've seen mining lasers before, Dae-ho said, though. He was impressed by the clean cut. That wasn't a mining laser, Min-soo replied with a wicked smile. That was a military-grade cutting beam. I've overcharged the power output by 200% and added focusing crystals from the geology lab. This thing can now slice through battleship armor like paper. Across the bay, technician Cho Woo-jin was elbow-deep in the ore processing system, surrounded by a collection of random objects that made no sense together. Broken electronics, empty food containers, pieces of hull plating, and what looked like someone's old boots. Woo-jin, please tell me you haven't lost your mind, Dae-ho said, walking over to inspect the chaos. Actually, I think I've found it. Woo-jin laughed, wiping his greasy hands on his coveralls. Remember how this system was designed to break down raw asteroids and compress them into manageable chunks? Well, I've been experimenting with different materials. He loaded a pile of scrap metal into the processor's intake. The massive machine rumbled to life, crushing and compressing the debris into a dense aerodynamic projectile about the size of a baseball. The system can process anything we feed it. Broken equipment becomes high-velocity slugs. Spent reactor rods become armor-piercing rounds. Even our garbage gets turned into ammunition. To demonstrate, he fired the compressed projectile through a magnetic launcher they jury-rigged to the processing system. The slug shot out at incredible speed, punching a clean hole through a piece of test armor. We've basically turned our trash into a weapon, Woo-jin said proudly. Every piece of junk on this ship is now potential ammunition. We'll never run out of things to shoot. Navigation Officer Yoon Hairi's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, please report to the navigation deck. You're going to want to see this personally. Dae-ho made his way through the ship's narrow corridors, passing crew members who were all working on mysterious projects. The Iron Phoenix had become a hive of activity, with humans crawling through every section, modifying systems and installing equipment that definitely wasn't in any manual. He found Hairi standing at the navigation console, which now had about 3 times as many controls as it should have. She was focused on a display showing the space around their ship, dotted with floating debris from their recent modifications. "I've been working with the tractor beam system," she said without looking up. "These things were designed to grab asteroids, weighing thousands of tons, and move them precisely into mining position. But I started wondering, what if we used them as weapons?" She targeted a chunk of space junk about 50 meters away. The tractor beam locked onto it, and suddenly the debris was moving, accelerating faster and faster, until it was just a blur on the screen. "Holy," Daiho started. 32% light speed, Hayri said casually. "At that velocity even. A small piece of metal hits with the force of a nuclear bomb. We can grab any debris, any asteroid, even enemy missiles, and turn them into kinetic weapons. The beauty is that space is full of ammunition just floating around waiting for us to use it," she demonstrated again, this time grabbing multiple pieces of debris and launching them in sequence. Each impact on the test target created brilliant flashes of light as the kinetic energy converted to heat and radiation. "We've essentially turned physics into our weapons system," she continued. "Mass times velocity equals devastation. And out here in space, we've got unlimited mass and the power to give it unlimited velocity." The real breakthrough came from electronics. Specialist Cog Hoon, who had been working in the ship's most damaged section. The area where multiple hull patches overlapped had given him an idea that bordered on genius. "Captain, remember how this ship is basically held together by welded-on patches," Ji-hoon said, pointing to the ugly seams where different metal plates had been joined together. "Well, I've been thinking about that as a feature, not a bug." He led Daiho to a section where the hull looked different. The metal plates were still there, but now they had small thrusters, sensors, and communication arrays attached to them. "I figured out how to make these patches detachable," Ji-hoon explained. "Each section can separate from the main hull and operate independently. They're like armored drones, but they're made from our own ship." He activated a control panel, and one of the hull sections suddenly detached with a hiss of escaping air. Instead of floating away helplessly, it moved with purpose, its small thrusters keeping it in formation with the main ship. Each drone has basic sensors, communication equipment, and can be controlled remotely. If we take damage instead of losing hull integrity, we gain attack drones. Enemy shoots at us. The damaged sections become a swarm of guided missiles heading straight back at them. To prove his point, he sent the detached section flying in a complex pattern around the ship, before having it reattach seamlessly to its original position. "We've got 47 of these patches," Ji-hoon said with satisfaction. "That's 47 potential drones that can absorb enemy fire, ram into targets, or carry explosive charges. Our biggest weakness, this patchwork hull, just became our greatest strength." Captain Daiho stood in the middle of the modified cargo bay, watching his crew work with tools and equipment that had never been designed for warfare. Sparks flew as welders attached new systems. The air hummed with the sound of charging capacitors and spinning machinery. Every surface was covered with jury-rigged equipment that looked like it shouldn't work, but somehow did. "We're not building a warship," he said quietly, watching Minsu test-fire his modified laser, while Wu Jin loaded more garbage into his ammunition processor. "We're building something the galaxy has never seen before." Lieutenant Kim Sora approached with a tablet full of technical specifications. "Captain, I've been running calculations on our modifications. By every standard military doctrine, this ship should be classified as impossible. We've got more firepower than a heavy cruiser, the maneuverability of a fighter, and defensive systems that technically don't exist. And it's all built from mining equipment and scrap metal," Daiho mused. "The aliens gave us junk and expected us to fail. Instead, we've turned their junk into something that could probably take on their best warships." Around them, the crew continued their work with the focused intensity that only humans seem to possess when faced with impossible odds. They weren't following any manual or copying existing designs. They were innovating, adapting, and creating solutions that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. The Iron Phoenix was no longer a decommissioned mining vessel. It had become something entirely new, a testament to human refusal to accept limitations and their talent for turning disadvantages into weapons. The emergency beacon cut through the Iron Phoenix's communication system like a scream in the night. Lieutenant Kim Sora's fingers flew across her console, isolating the signal and running it through their translation matrix. "Captain, we've got a code-red distress call," she announced, her voice tight with urgency. "Human freight convoy. Thunder attack in the Kepler belt. Multiple hostile vessels requesting immediate assistance." Captain Lee Dae-ho was already moving toward the bridge before she finished speaking. "How many ships?" "6 pirates, sir. They've got the convoy cornered against the asteroid field. 3 cargo haulers with minimal defensive capabilities." Sora's face went pale as she read the detailed report. "Captain, one of those ships is the New Seoul Express. That's the main supply run for the outer colonies. If they lose that cargo, thousands of people go without medicine, food and basic supplies," Dae-ho finished grimly. "Navigation Officer Yoon, plot a course for the Kepler belt. Maximum speed." "Course plotted, Captain. 18 minutes to intercept." "That might be too late," muttered Chief Engineer Park Min-soo, checking the tactical display. "Those pirates usually don't waste time with negotiations. They take what they want and eliminate witnesses." The Iron Phoenix streaked through space, its modified engines pushing the old mining vessel to speeds that should have torn it apart. But the crew's recent modifications had reinforced the structural integrity, turning their weakness into strength. Once again, as they approached the battle zone, the situation became clear on their sensors. 6 sleek pirate vessels had formed a hunting pack around 3 desperately maneuvering cargo ships. The pirates were playing with their prey, taking turns to swoop in and disable engines or weapon systems. They wanted the cargo intact, but they also wanted the crew to suffer. "Captain," whispered electronics specialist Seo Ji-hoon, "we're picking up their communications. They're laughing about how easy this is. They're calling the cargo crews pathetic humans and making bets about how long they'll last." Dae-ho's jaw tightened. These weren't just raiders. They were bullies who enjoyed terrorizing defenseless victims. The lead pirate ship was easily 3 times the size of the Iron Phoenix, bristling with military-grade weapons and powered by engines that cost more than most colonies' annual budgets. "All right, people," Dae-ho said quietly. "Time to see if our modifications work under real combat conditions. Ji-hoon, prepare the hull drones, but keep them attached until I give the word. Min-soo, charge up those plasma cutters, but keep them powered down. Woo-jin, load the ammunition processors with our heaviest scrap. Harry, I want targeting solutions on all 6 hostiles, but don't lock on yet." "Sir," Sora asked, "what's our approach strategy?" "We're going to do what they expect us to do," Dae-ho replied with a cold smile. "We're going to run away." The Iron Phoenix emerged from hyperspace broadcasting standard mining vessel identification codes. To anyone watching, it looked like a typical industrial ship that had stumbled into a combat zone and was desperately trying to escape. The ship's transponder identified it as carrying asteroid processing equipment and a skeleton crew of miners. The pirate vessels barely glanced at the newcomer. One of them, a vicious-looking raider called the Blood Fang, sent a brief message. "Mining vessel, clear the area or be destroyed. This is none of your concern." The Iron Phoenix immediately changed course, appearing to flee toward the outer edge of the asteroid field. Its movements looked panicked, desperate, exactly what the pirates expected from terrified human miners. "They're ignoring us completely," reported Hyrie. "All 6 vessels are maintaining formation around the convoy. They think we're just another scared human ship running away." "Perfect," Dae-ho whispered. "That's exactly what we want them to think. Continue evasive maneuvers, but bring us around behind that large asteroid cluster. I want to use the rocks as cover." The cargo ships were running out of time. The New Seoul Express had already taken damage to its port engine, and the pirates were closing in for the final assault. Their leader, a reptilian alien known as Captain Vextar, was notorious for his cruelty. He preferred to capture human crews alive so he could sell them to slave markets in the Outer Rim. "Captain," Hyrie said quietly, "I've got perfect targeting solutions. The asteroid field is giving us incredible ammunition options. There's a chunk of pure iron ore about 3 kilometers away that weighs approximately 3 tons. If I grab it with the tractor beam and accelerate it to maximum velocity—" "Do it," Dae-ho ordered. "Now." The Iron Phoenix suddenly reversed course with a speed that should have been impossible for a mining vessel. Instead of fleeing, it was now streaking directly toward the pirate formation, but its intentions were still hidden by the asteroid field. Navigation Officer Yoon Hae-ri's fingers danced across her controls, and the ship's massive tractor beam reached out to grab the iron ore asteroid. The chunk of metal, roughly the size of a small building, suddenly began accelerating at an incredible rate. "Target acquired," she announced. "Projectile velocity at 15% light speed and climbing. 20%, 25, 30%. Firing solution locked on the lead pirate vessel." The pirate ship. Bloodfang never saw it coming. One moment Captain Vextar was gloating over his easy prey, and the next moment 3 tons of iron ore punched through his ship's hull at nearly a third of light speed. The kinetic impact vaporized the entire forward section, turning the feared raider into an expanding cloud of superheated debris. "What the hell was that?" screamed one of the remaining pirate captains over the open channel. They got their answer immediately. The Iron Phoenix emerged from the asteroid field like an avenging angel, its modified plasma cutters charging with an ominous whine. Chief Engineer Park Min-soo had been waiting for this moment, and his overcharged mining lasers were ready to show the galaxy what human engineering could accomplish. "Second target locked," Min-soo announced. "Engaging engines." Twin beams of superheated plasma lanced out from the Iron Phoenix, striking the second pirate ship's engine section with surgical precision. The military-grade weapons that should have been impossible to penetrate were sliced open like tin cans. The pirate vessel's engines exploded in a chain reaction that left the ship drifting helplessly in space. "This is impossible," shouted another pirate captain. "It's just a mining ship." Technician Cho Woo-jin answered that question with his modified ammunition system. The ore processors began firing a continuous stream of compressed scrap metal, each projectile traveling at velocities that turned trash into armor-piercing rounds. The remaining 4 pirate ships found themselves under assault from what appeared to be an endless supply of high-velocity garbage. "Hull integrity compromised," screamed the third pirate ship, as compressed food containers and broken electronics punched through their armor plating like bullets through paper. But the real surprise was yet to come. Electronics specialist Seo Ji-hoon activated his greatest creation, and suddenly the Iron Phoenix seemed to explode into pieces. Hull sections detached and scattered, each one now an independent drone, armed with small weapons and guided by remote control. The pirates found themselves facing not one enemy ship, but dozens of small, highly maneuverable targets that swarmed around them like angry insects. Their weapon systems, designed to track large vessels, couldn't keep up with the chaotic movement of the hull drones. "They're everywhere," panicked a pirate gunner. "How do we fight targets that keep breaking apart and reforming?" The answer was simple. They couldn't. Within 12 minutes of the Iron Phoenix's first attack, 6 pirate vessels were either destroyed or disabled. The feared raiders who had terrorized human colonies for months had been eliminated by what appeared to be a garbage truck with delusions of grandeur. Captain Vextar's second-in-command, barely alive in an escape pod, transmitted a desperate message to pirate headquarters. "The humans, they've built something impossible. It's not a warship, it's not a mining vessel, it's something else entirely. Warn the others, warn everyone. The humans are no longer prey." As rescue ships arrived to assist the damaged cargo convoy, news of the victory began spreading through the human colonies. The impossible had happened. A converted mining ship had defeated an entire pirate squadron using nothing but modified industrial equipment and human ingenuity. The Galactic Trade Consortium's military analysts dismissed the reports as exaggerated. Propaganda. After all, how could humans possibly turn mining equipment into weapons capable of destroying military vessels? It had to be luck, or perhaps the pirates had suffered some kind of technical malfunction. They would learn the truth soon. Enough. The Iron Phoenix had drawn first blood, and the galaxy was about to discover that underestimating human creativity was a fatal mistake. The conference room on New Terra Station buzzed with tension as colony leaders from across the Outer Rim gathered for an emergency meeting. Captain Lee Dae-ho stood at the head of the table, his uniform bearing fresh burn marks from last week's engagement with Syndicate raiders. The holographic display behind him showed a map of human space, dotted with red markers indicating recent attacks. 17 colonies hit in the past month, announced Colony Administrator Quan Yejin, her weathered face grim with exhaustion. The pirates aren't just raiding anymore, they're coordinating. Someone's organizing them into a proper military force. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembled leaders. These weren't politicians or military officers, they were miners, farmers, engineers and traders who had carved out lives on the galaxy's frontier. They'd signed up for hard work and dangerous conditions, not warfare. The Galactic Trade Consortium's response? Asked Administrator Park from New Busan Colony. They've increased patrols in the core systems, Quan replied bitterly. For us, they suggest we consider relocation to safer territories. In other words, abandon everything we've built and become refugees in alien space, Chief Engineer Park. Minsu stepped forward, activating the holographic display. The image shifted to show dozens of converted human vessels, ships that had once been garbage haulers, cargo freighters, and mining platforms. Now they bristled with improvised weapons and defensive systems that looked like something from a mad inventor's workshop. This is the Typhoon Protocol, Minsu explained, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had seen impossible things work. It's not about building better ships. It's about thinking like humans instead of copying alien military doctrine. He highlighted a converted cargo hauler called the Rising Sun. This ship used to transport grain between agricultural worlds. Now it carries compressed fertilizer rounds that explode with the force of military-grade bombs. The cargo holds that once stored wheat now house missile launchers built from irrigation equipment. The display shifted to show a passenger liner that had been transformed into something unrecognizable. The New Hope used to carry families to new colonies. We've converted the passenger compartments into troop deployment bays, and the kitchen facilities now manufacture chemical weapons from cooking ingredients. Even the entertainment systems have been weaponized. They can jam enemy communications or broadcast psychological warfare. Colony Leader Kim from the mining world of Kepler-7 leaned forward with interest. You're saying we can turn our civilian infrastructure into a military force? We're saying we already have, Captain Daeho replied, activating another section of the display. Every human vessel can become a weapon platform. Your garbage scows? They're already equipped with compactors and crushers that can turn waste into high-velocity projectiles. Your construction ships, they have industrial tools that can cut through battleship armor. Your mining equipment? It's already designed to break apart asteroids. Imagine what it can do to enemy hulls. Engineer Yoon Hai-ri stepped up to the display, her reputation as the architect of the converted fleet preceding her. Since the victory at Kepler Belt, she'd become something of a legend among human spacers. The key is coordination, she explained. Individual converted ships are dangerous, but a coordinated fleet of them is unstoppable. She showed tactical recordings from recent engagements. 3 weeks ago, Crimson Syndicate raiders hit the mining station at Asteroid Belt 7. They expected to face helpless workers with basic defensive systems. Instead, they encountered 47 converted mining platforms working in perfect coordination. The footage showed what looked like industrial equipment suddenly transforming into a swarm of deadly weapons. Mining lasers carved through radar, shields or processors launched streams of high-velocity rocks, and construction mechs turned their building tools into instruments of destruction. The raiders never figured out what they were fighting, Hai-ri continued. Their targeting systems were designed to track military vessels, not mining equipment that could suddenly become weapons. We destroyed their entire force without losing a single human life. Colony Administrator Quan nodded slowly. But this requires training, coordination, resources we don't have. Actually, you do, Minsu replied. Every human colony already has the infrastructure we need. Your mechanics can modify industrial equipment. They've been jury-rigging solutions their entire careers. Your pilots know how to fly in dangerous conditions. They've been dodging asteroids and navigating hazardous space for years. Your engineers understand systems integration. They've been keeping impossible machinery running with spare parts and creativity. Captain Daeho activated a new section of the display showing training protocols. We're not asking you to become soldiers. We're asking you to become what you already are, humans who refuse to accept limitations. The Typhoon Protocol works because it doesn't fight fair. We don't try to match alien military technology. We use what we have in ways they never expect. The room fell silent as the colony leaders absorbed this information. These were practical people who understood that survival often meant making tough decisions. "What about the Galactic Trade Consortium?" asked Administrator Lee from the agricultural world of New Eden. "They won't approve of us militarizing civilian vessels. The consortium gave us junk and told us to be grateful," Dae-ho replied. "They've made it clear that human lives are expendable, so we stop asking for their permission and start taking care of ourselves." Over the following months, the transformation was remarkable. Human colonies across the Outer Rim began implementing the Typhoon Protocol with the same determination they'd once applied to terraform hostile worlds. Every ship, every piece of equipment, every system was evaluated for its potential as a weapon. The agricultural world of New Jeju became a perfect example of the doctrine in action. When syndicate raiders arrived expecting to find defenseless farmers, they instead encountered a planet-wide defense network that used farming equipment as weapons of war. The colonists had converted their crop-dusting aircraft into fighter planes that dropped fertilizer bombs with devastating effect. Irrigation systems became pressurized launchers, firing streams of liquid metal heated in processing plants. Even the automated harvesters were reprogrammed to serve as mobile weapon platforms, their cutting tools perfectly designed for slicing through enemy armor. "This is impossible!" screamed the raider commander, as his forces were systematically destroyed by what appeared to be farming equipment. "We're being attacked by tractors and sprinkler systems." The psychological effect was as important as the tactical victory. Word spread throughout the criminal underworld that human colonies were no longer easy targets. Pirates began avoiding human space entirely, uncertain of what seemingly innocent equipment might suddenly transform into lethal weapons. Engineer Yoon Hae-ri coordinated these victories from the command center aboard the Iron Phoenix, which had become the flagship of humanity's unconventional fleet. Her tactical displays showed hundreds of converted vessels spread across dozens of star systems, each one ready to transform from civilian ship to warship at a moment's notice. "The beauty of the Typhoon Protocol," she explained to a gathering, of human fleet commanders, "is that our enemies can never prepare for what we're going to do because we're always improvising new solutions. They study our tactics, and we've already moved on to something completely different." The galaxy's criminal organizations began sharing warnings about human space. Pirates who had once seen humans as easy prey now spoke in hushed tones about colonies that could turn entire industrial complexes into weapons overnight. The reputation of the Iron Phoenix and its converted fleet grew with each victory, but the most important change was psychological. Human colonists no longer saw themselves as helpless victims waiting for alien protection. They had become something new, a species that could turn any disadvantage into an advantage, any limitation into an opportunity. The message resonated. Throughout human space and beyond, underestimate humanity at your own peril. The galaxy was about to learn that giving humans junk and expecting gratitude was the biggest mistake they could make. As Captain Lee Dae-ho watched the holographic displays showing their growing fleet of converted vessels, he realized they had accomplished something unprecedented. They hadn't just built a military force, they had created a new form of warfare based entirely on human adaptability and refusal to accept defeat. The aliens had given them garbage ships and expected them to disappear quietly. Instead, they had created something the galaxy had never seen before, a fleet that grew stronger not through military construction, but through pure human creativity and determination. The emergency alert that screamed across every human communication channel was unlike anything the colonies had ever received. Lieutenant Kim Sora's face went pale as she decoded the incoming transmission aboard the Iron Phoenix. "Captain, you need to hear this immediately," she called out, her voice shaking with disbelief. Captain Lee Dae-ho rushed to the communications station as the message played. The voice belonged to Admiral Zek Thari of the Galactic Trade Consortium's Central Command, and for the first time in recorded history, the arrogant alien sounded terrified. "All vessels, all stations, code black emergency. The Vorthak Empire has launched a full-scale invasion of the Outer Rim territories. 800 warships of unknown design have emerged from hyperspace. Our defensive fleets have been eliminated, requesting immediate assistance from all available military assets. The transmission cut to tactical displays that made everyone on the bridge freeze in horror. Massive alien vessels, each one the size of a small moon, were systematically destroying everything in their path. The consortium's proud military fleet, ships that had seemed invincible just hours before, were being torn apart like paper toys. "My God," whispered Chief Engineer Park Min-soo. "Those aren't just warships, they're planet killers." The Vorthak vessels moved with terrifying precision, their dark hulls covered in weapons that fired beams of pure energy. Each shot could vaporize a consortium battleship in seconds. Even worse, the alien fleet seemed to be enjoying the slaughter, taking time to completely annihilate each target, instead of simply moving past them. "Captain," Sora said, her voice barely above a whisper, "they're heading directly for human space. At their current speed, they'll reach the outer colonies in 18 hours. Daeho stared at the tactical display, watching as red markers representing destroyed consortium ships winked out one by one. The aliens who had considered humans barely worth protecting were being eliminated with casual efficiency by an enemy they couldn't even slow down. "Send out the call," he ordered quietly. "Typhoon Protocol, maximum response, every converted vessel, every colony defense platform, every human who can hold a wrench and modify a plasma cutter. This is what we've been preparing for." Within minutes, the response was overwhelming. The display screens filled with acknowledgement signals from across human space. Nearly 2,000 converted vessels began moving toward the intercept coordinates. Garbage haulers with missile systems, mining ships with overcharged weapons, colony transports bristling with improvised armor and guns. Engineer Yoon Hai-ri coordinated the massive fleet from her position aboard the Iron Phoenix. The ship that had once been an insult had become the command center for humanity's desperate last stand. "Analysis complete," she reported. "The Vorthak ships are incredibly advanced, but they're following standard military doctrine. Perfect formations, coordinated attacks, predictable targeting patterns. They're expecting to fight conventional forces." "Good," Daeho replied grimly, "because there's nothing conventional about what we're about to do." The battle began exactly as the Vorthak expected. Their massive fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, weapons charging with deadly precision. Their ships were works of art, sleek, powerful, and designed by a civilization that had conquered dozens of star systems. What they encountered instead was chaos incarnate. The human fleet didn't form orderly battle lines or follow any recognizable military strategy. Instead, they scattered like a flock of startled birds, each ship becoming an unpredictable threat that moved in ways that made no tactical sense. "What are they doing?" demanded Vorthak Fleet Commander Thex Mori as he watched. The human vessels spread out in seemingly random patterns. "This isn't how space battles are fought." His answer came in the form of a converted garbage hauler called the Recycling Dream. The ship that had once transported waste between colonies suddenly opened fire with compressed trash traveling at impossible velocities. Kitchen appliances, broken electronics and expired food containers punched through the hull of a Vorthak destroyer like armor-piercing rounds. "They're shooting garbage at us," screamed a Vorthak weapons officer. That was just the beginning. Mining. Vessels used their industrial cutting tools to slice through alien hulls like hot knives through butter. Construction ships deployed their building equipment as weapons, literally constructing death traps around enemy vessels using materials they'd been carrying for colony expansion projects. The Iron Phoenix led the charge, its hull drone swarms creating a cloud of thousands of detached sections that swarmed around the alien fleet like angry insects. Electronics specialist Co. Ji-hoon coordinated the attack, turning each piece of their patched hull into a guided missile that could think and adapt. "Impossible!" shouted Commander Thex Mori as his targeting systems failed to track the chaotic swarm of human vessels. "They keep changing configuration. My computers can't lock onto targets that won't hold still." The Vorthak had designed their ships to fight other military vessels, large, predictable targets that followed standard combat protocols. They had no idea how to deal with enemies that could literally fall apart and keep fighting, or weapon systems built from trash compactors and mining equipment. A converted passenger liner called the New Horizon demonstrated the ultimate in human improvisation. The ship had been carrying colonists when the invasion began, so the passengers had quickly converted their personal belongings into ammunition. The Vorthak found themselves under attack from everything from children's toys fired at high velocity to cooking equipment that had been turned into chemical weapons. "Sir," reported Vorthak Tactical Officer Nexvor, "we're taking casualties from household appliances. A kitchen blender just took out our port weapons array." The tide of battle began to turn when the Vorthak made their critical mistake. Seeing the Iron Phoenix as the obvious command ship, they focused their most powerful vessels on destroying it. A massive dreadnought, easily 10 times the size of the human flagship, moved in for the killing blow. That's when engineer Yoon Hae-ri implemented the Phoenix Gambit. Instead of fleeing from the massive enemy ship, the Iron Phoenix accelerated directly toward it. At the last second, Hae-ri activated the ship's overcharged tractor beams, the same systems that had once moved asteroids for mining operations. The Vorthak dreadnought, damaged from the chaotic battle, was suddenly grabbed by forces it couldn't resist. Before its crew could react, they found themselves being accelerated toward the Vorthak command ship at incredible speed. "What's happening?" screamed Commander Thexmori as he watched his own dreadnought approaching on a collision course. "They're using our ship as a weapon," his tactical officer replied in disbelief. The impact was spectacular. 2 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy collided at tremendous velocity, creating an explosion that could be seen from neighboring star systems. The blast took out 17 more Vorthak vessels and left their invasion fleet without leadership or coordination. That's when the true genius of the Typhoon Protocol revealed itself. While the aliens had been focused on large-scale tactics and advanced technology, the humans had been thinking small and personal. Every converted ship fought like an individual warrior, adapting to each moment of battle with creativity that no computer could predict. Chief Engineer Park Min-soo coordinated a group of mining ships that literally built a trap around a Vorthak battle cruiser, using their construction equipment to weld debris into a cage that prevented the alien ship from maneuvering. Technician Cho Woo-jin's ammunition processors had created rounds from everything, including expired medicines and broken furniture, each shot carrying the desperate innovation of humans who refused to surrender. Within 6 hours, the most advanced military force in the galaxy was in full retreat. The Vorthak survivors fled back to hyperspace, carrying tales of an impossible enemy that fought with weapons that shouldn't exist and tactics that made no sense. Captain Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the Iron Phoenix, surrounded by his exhausted but victorious crew. Around them, nearly 2,000 human vessels were beginning the process of rescue and recovery, their impossible weapons already being converted back to peaceful purposes. "Captain," Sora said quietly, "we're receiving congratulations from across the galaxy. The consortium is calling it the greatest military victory in recorded history." Dae-ho looked out at the debris field that had once been an unstoppable invasion force. "They still don't understand," he said. "This wasn't a military victory. This was human ingenuity refusing to accept defeat. The worthless ship they'd been given as an insult had become the symbol of something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that could turn any disadvantage into an advantage, any limitation into an opportunity, any piece of junk into a weapon of liberation." Sometimes the greatest weapons weren't built in military shipyards or designed by advanced civilizations. Sometimes they were forged from necessity, creativity, and the simple human refusal to surrender when faced with impossible odds. As the Iron Phoenix began its journey home, its hull patched with new scars from battle, Captain Lee Dae-ho knew that the galaxy would never again mistake human adaptability for weakness. They had proven that sometimes the best response to superior technology was superior determination and the willingness to fight dirty when survival was on the line. The E. End fell.